And let me introduce myself. I am Natalia Ryzhova, professor of Moscow City University. And of course, I am happy to moderate this session. And many thanks to the symposium organizing committee for such possibility to organize this session. And many thanks all speakers. And we have speakers from 6 countries, and I believe it's great. And many thanks to all participants who joined us. You know that today we will discuss some issues of education for sustainable development of young children. And I want to stress that education for sustainable development is one of the crucial ideas for sustainable development and for sustainable cities. And it should start in early education, in early childhood. Today, this field becomes a priority in education for young children. And many teachers ask me, what is sustainable development? What is education for sustainable development? And how and why we can implement these ideas in our practice? So I hope that today we will discuss some issues and give some answers. Okay, we are ready, and so I want to invite the first our speaker, Adrijana Višnjić-Jevtić from Zagreb. Adrijana, are you here? Adrijana? Okay, Adrijana is absent, but I hope she will join us. Okay, Nektarios, are you ready? Let me introduce you, Nektarios Stellakis, Assistant Professor, University of Patras, Greece. Nektarios, you are welcome.
Hello.
Okay.
Yes, I am fine, thanks.
Yes, you can begin.
Yeah, can I share my...
You can share your presentation, yes.
Give me a second because I'm not prepared to be the first one. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Natalia Ryzhova for inviting me to take part in this session. I would prefer to be in Moscow with you as the previous times, but under this situation, it seems to be difficult to be together. I wish in the future to have this opportunity to be together again. Also, I would like to greet all colleagues I've met before, especially in OMEP, and I am happy to be here with you. My topic is, my purpose is to share with you some concerns and questions. I have not answers, but I think that questions are really important sometimes. So I am going to speak about social and economic topics in early childhood education. And I will explain a little bit. If we see our global situation, I am sure that we have a lot of reason to be concerned about these social and economic topics. I have included here the climate crisis, which is close to environmental, or the fires. I am sure that you know that this summer we have suffered a lot with forest fires, not only in Greece, but also in Turkey, Italy, and Spain, all Mediterranean countries. And also, for the first time, we had fires in northern countries like Finland. And we also concerned about the situation in Afghanistan. I am sure that you know you remember that 2015, we had a lot of refugees passing our country to their way in Europe. It was in all media, and now we are really concerned about a new wave of refugees from Afghanistan. Just before entering this session, I was reading an article about anti-Gypsyism in Central Europe, like, for example, Czech Republic. And of course, I am sure that you remember the movement Black Lives Matter in the United States, or our selfishness. We don't give vaccines to the majority world, Africa, Latin America, etc., Asia countries. So we keep the vaccines for COVID-19 for ourselves, and we don't share this. If you see this picture, and on the other side, you compare this with the happiness and the creativity in kindergarten, you think, oh my God, how on earth we can discuss this kind of topics in kindergarten? Even in the target 457 about education for sustainable development, the topics is human rights, gender equity, culture of peace and non-violence, global citizenships, cultural diversity. These are very discrete and, let's say, hot topics. And I am sure that not only in my country, but in other countries, also kindergarten teachers do not feel comfortable to discuss. Contrary, they are very willing and very warm to discuss environmental topics. They like to discuss about ecosystems, but even the pollution. But when we once come to this social, which means political, and economic, which means injustice topics, it's not easy for them to discuss and employ these topics in their culture, in their classrooms. This target 4.7 is about empowering and enabling students to be active agents of positive change. And of course, I totally agree with Ms. Ryzhova saying that this ECD, Education for Sustainable Development, should start the early years. So in order to discuss and implement these topics in our classroom, we have to see children, young children, 3 years old, 4 years old, as active agents of change. We usually think that this age is just to receive our love, our care, but we don't see children, young children, as active citizens for change. So we have to change, to discuss our perspective also. Back to some years ago, there was this UNESCO publication about education for people and planet, and you see the topics. The last one is global citizenship and interconnectedness, that we are all connected. But this is a big challenge. For example, speaking for Afghanistan, my government, along with some other European Union governments and Turkey, they want to stop, to build walls, to stop refugees coming to Europe. So they don't see practically this interconnectedness. And I think that this is a big issue. Or the World Health Organization asked European and let's say Western, not the world or minority world, to share vaccines with other countries, to open the platforms. But we are not willing to do that. It means that we don't see that. So along with education for sustainable development, another term, global citizenship education, comes to focus, especially the last year, which means any educational effort that aims to provide the skills, knowledge and experiences and to encourage the behaviors, attitudes and values that allow young persons to be agents of long-term positive changes in their own lives and in the lives of people in their immediate and larger communities. So global citizenship education comes with education for sustainable development. I am not going to read all this. It's from a publication of OECD, and it says that education for global citizenship equips youth with an understanding of global ties, fosters the skills, values, and knowledge to empower them as global citizens, and allow people to coexist with diverse spaces. So we have the targets, but it's still difficult. And why this is difficult and challenging? Because there are some soft skills that we can do, but also there is a critical aspect on that. And critical is a Greek word, means judgment, which means that we have to focus if it is correct or it is incorrect, if it's just or unjust. And this is really challenging to discuss with young children and interpreting social or economical facts to understand if this is good or not. So it needs a big effort for a kindergarten teacher to understand and to discuss this thing. Of course, education for sustainable development, as this Berlin Declaration from a current conference in Berlin says, is a foundational element of our education system at all levels. It means including early childhood education, and it is explaining later in this declaration. So it seems that there is a consensus. Education for sustainable development and education for global citizenship has a position in early childhood education. The big question mark is how we can achieve this and how we can really discuss deeply not only environmental issues, which are, let's say, are the easy ones, but also the social and economic, which are deeply political. What our children, we want them to learn, which are the skills, which are the values. And we as society, we don't share the common values. So it is really challenging, and of course there is not a unique answer to this. We cannot say that all over the world kindergarten teachers can do the same things. It's not the same to discuss refugee issues, for example, in my town, which is far away from the islands, and discussing refugee issues on the islands of Aegean Sea, which are close to the Turkish coast, and the first place in Europe these refugees meet. So for me, perhaps it's easy because I can stress the humanitarian perspective. But on the island, this is very challenging. And sometimes the perspective of the teacher is not the same with the majority of the community. So what I would like to say is that we have to discuss deeply as teachers in our society, in our community, and with our society, which value we want to transfer to our children. And this is not an easy task. And this is not the usual daily work of a kindergarten teacher. So I have no answers, but I would be happy to hear your opinion about this topic. To sum up, I think that environmental issues are not difficult to be discussed in a kindergarten classroom, but social and economic are very challenging. I don't argue that we shouldn't discuss them in kindergarten. Of course, we have to. So we welcome this challenge, but we have to discuss deeply and create learning communities, perhaps in a local place, and a collaborative action, and find reasonable ways in order to discuss this issue with our children. The role of teacher is changing under this framework. It's not transferring knowledge, but not only transferring knowledge, but opening a critical and not only creative, because we discuss about creativity in early childhood education. It's not only creativity, but also a critical perspective for our young children, who are the younger citizens and the citizens of tomorrow. I would be happy to hear your comments and discuss your perspectives. Thank you very much once again for inviting me in this wonderful conference. Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you very much, Nektarios. You can see one comment. We have one comment. I believe that it is very important to discuss all dimensions of ESD. And I have some question for you. For example, you mentioned that we always like or prefer to discuss the environmental dimension, not political or social or economic. But I believe that we can discuss them together, because they are connected. Yes, for example, fires, this is environmental problem, this is economic problem, and this is social problem. Do you agree with me?
Of course, I agree with you. I totally agree for the interconnectedness. So, you cannot divide them. You cannot divide 3 dimensions. You have to examine and discuss all together. But what I would like to stress is that this is a real challenge for kindergarten teachers.
Yes, I see. Thank you so much. Maybe we have some questions. Есть ли вопросы у студентов? Я знаю, что магистранты к нам присоединились. Есть вопросы? Вы можете задать их в прямом эфире.
Do you have questions? Do students have questions, Your Majesty? Natalia?
Hello. Hello to all. Yes, since I am afterwards, I would like to mention the importance of what you just said, Nektaria, the role of the teachers. And I am concerning also about the values to transmit to the young citizens, the young children, but of course we have to focus on the teachers of young children. And it is very well said that in nowadays it is very challengeable for young teachers also to understand the importance of these values. Thank you, Nektaria, for your position. I agree with it.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Nektarios, do you want to answer? Okay, okay. And what about Adriana? Adriana, are you here? No. Okay, so I invite Maria Vassiliadou, assistant professor from Frederick University, Cyprus. Maria, you are welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Shall I share my screen, Natalia?
Yes, you can try. You can demonstrate your screen.
Can you see my screen?
No.
Now?
No.
Moment, I will try again.
Try again, please.
Now? Can you see my screen?
No. Oh, okay, okay.
Yes?
Yes, it's great.
Okay. Good morning to all of you. I am sending greetings from Cyprus, the Aphrodite Island. Thank you, Natalia, for inviting me to participate in this symposium and for giving me the opportunity to discuss with my other colleagues. Most of them I know from other conferences and from OMEP, and participation to this symposium, Education and City. As you can see, my presentation has a title, The Role of Heritage in Educating Conscious Citizens, because I feel that heritage is linked with cities and that modern cities need to be viewed by young citizens in the context of heritage in order to appreciate their existence. Even if during the pandemic of COVID-19, most of the cities have been almost empty, and most of them have been cities without citizens. Therefore, somebody can say that the importance of the city is contradictory, since heritage doesn't exist without inhabitants. But nevertheless, the city continues to exist. And please permit me to make an introduction to my presentation with two short extracts from Cavafy's poem, The City. You said, I'll go to another country, go to another shore, find another city, better than this one. I'm sorry. You won't find a new country, won't find another shore. This city will always pursue. You walk the same streets, grow old in the same neighborhoods, turn gray in these same houses. We will always end up in this city. It is certainly not our aim to make a literary analysis on the poem, but I believe that the above passage marks the importance of the city, not only as an architectural example, but as a place, time, manner, sound, forming the identity of humans. What is the city and who are we? Many times people live in a place without perceiving the vibrations of it, listening to its pulse. The space and the time are simply the transport means for the final personal journey. In the case of cities, especially large ones, the phenomenon is even more pronounced. But it is a matter of culture. How do people not feel it and not identify what it is while living, working, moving in a city? Supposedly for a person, the city seems to be different because he does not experience it and has never tried to discover it. It is simply the place where he carries out his daily life with full awareness of his duties, but without any other empathy. Manuel Delgado, professor of social anthropology at the University of Barcelona, in his book, Moving Societies, Steps to Anthropology of the Streets, refers to the city using the Greek word polis, as it is to separate its meaning from urbs, which in Latin is the antonym of the city. The city, in a broad sense, territory, and thus metropolitan area, in contrast to the urbs, has the constructed space, the complex of buildings, roads, and infrastructure projects. If we consider that the city is a living organism with a strong history that can at the same time influence the personal history of each of us, according to our experience in it, we would say that the image is the role of very important. Although many modern cities demonstrated that old and new can coexist, and some of them are giving examples of sustainable development, we do not have the guarantee of sustainable continuity if we do not prepare the young citizens for it. Because in the case of young children and people, of course, however, the city tends to lose its identity as modern society and technology converges on a declining value of viewing and observing the existing and the familiar, projecting the search for the oniric and the different. So, based on the above, and with the absolute conviction that acquaintances with the city can be a trigger for awakening and inspiration for creativity, the axes were set for the activity which I will describe below, in order to give an example on how we can use the heritage of the city for educating young citizens to become conscious of the need of protection of the environment and the culture in a sustainable way. The main goal of the activity was to prove whether the city, with everything it complex and means, can be a space of exploration and learning through the visual approach. Secondary goals, such as getting to know, exploring the city, and consequently its identity, were also important. This activity, of course, took place before COVID-19 period, and the results were very convincing enough for continuity. But unfortunately, we need to wait for the post-COVID time in order to continue, hopefully, for this new academic semester. So specifically with students of pre-primary department who attended the art education course at Frederick University, we took a tour of the old city within the walls of Nicosia with the aim of observing, recognizing, to relate the identity of the city and the identity of themselves. Permitted to mention here that most of the students, they were coming from another town, Limassol or Larnaca. They used to take over their lessons and return to their home city without exploring the city they were studying. So it was very important for this activity to see how the young citizens can explore the city they were studying. So through the tour, but also with the sequent activity of the artistic expression, we sought the answer to our initial questions. Could students observe, experience, and understand what is happening in the city? What is the city? How is it? And how was the city before? What are the vibrations of the city? And how we can make the city sustainable? As pointed out at the beginning of this talk, people may look but not see the city and what is happening around them. For this reason, the activity of the tour was designed in such a way as to direct the observation and to start consequently a diligent search for information that will make a personal opinion about what is a city and what is the need of sustainability. Each group could trace their own tour, and each member of the group will keep their own notes out of it, the most important points, and finally, they could have photographs or drawing in order to make later on their own artwork with their story and identify themselves. I can show some examples. And what some students mentioned while they were touring. Then I coded them. Then I headed to small neighborhoods where were traditional buildings whose architecture was impressive. I especially admire the windows, the doors, as well as the balconies of the buildings, since they remind me of old times, something to consist, something to keep, something to protect. The point of my choice is next to Girls' School of Phaneromeni, a small church, Stavros to Mrs. Wu, which was closed. I learned from the owner of a cafe next door that some years before it used to be a church and then turned to a mosque. Now it is closed. Nobody can enter. The reason I chose this point is because I am very moved by the fact that in an occupied area of Nicosia, there is a church that can no longer function either as a Christian church or as a mosque. So I felt that we are not really free. The story I wanted to show through my plan, this is one of the artworks made by the students, is despite the conflicts, and indeed we are with Turks and Cypriots, we coexist in the same area, but at the same time show that in front of the door of the church that has been converted into mosque, while the Cypriot soldiers are very close to them, nobody can enter, nobody can decline. Also, due to the fact I have my desire to liberate the occupied area of the whole church and the whole Cyprus island, and this is strong, I put at the top 2 hands holding a candle. This shows my wish, also shows my wish of coexistence, to become like the old times. Here we can see a combination to the old and the new, the past and the future. I pass quickly with some points in order to become to my conclusions. My point of choice was all the wooden doors and windows, most of which were painted, something you did not see enough around you today. But the bad thing is that none of these doors is open, like in old times. I like the elements of the old architecture. They are elements that I want to have in my house as well. The door that caught my attention the most I mentioned above was closed like all. Unlike in my mind, fantastically, in my artwork, open to an inner courtyard full of colorful flowers. This is how I want the entrance of my house to be in the future. Here we can appreciate some other artworks of the students. As I walked, the element of the motor range became more and more apparent. At the end of the street, I saw some walls that had graffiti on them. Undoubtedly, In this area, there is intense need of this art, which express young people. Going forward, I saw a sign that shows humanity and the intense sensibility of people, young people. In front of a wall with graffitis, they are hanging clothes on which people are free to take some clothes that people don't need. Old clothes can be taken for people who really need them, to use them. At this point, I was excited because it is nice nowadays to have people who can help people who need it. In fact, this point was given the name Wall of Kindness. You can appreciate my own story later on. This is out of inspired out of the wall of the graffiti. And coming to the results and comments of the students, they are referring, it was an amazing experience, the whole process of touring the old city, taking pictures, developing our imagination, using the past to create the future. I am very excited, very happy to have this experience. Through this experience, I lived and gained knowledge that I may not have the opportunity to live again. And I was informed about the history of a region and the city. And now I would like to speak a little bit about the second activity that it took place with the students to become future teachers. And they carried out in a preschool settings with children from different backgrounds, multicultural backgrounds. The children need to talk about the city to understand the elements that make it up. So, because of the multicultural environment, the children declare different elements as a concept of a content. And then they show various photos of the students' tour, and we are asked to create their own fantastic city. Unfortunately, I do not have this picture because I didn't have the signs of all parents, and because it was a collective artwork. But I can describe that they use old newspapers, they enrich with acrylic colors and demonstrate how they can mix the old and the new, and how they dreamt about the new city. And I considered it was going to be a sample. So coming to the conclusions, the overall results of the activity were appreciation, understanding, and harmonization with the city. And there was always interest in its identity, and at the same time, a curiosity for exploring the local history. Their experience seems unique. They like the group participation, the exchange of ideas, especially the fact that they have the opportunity to imply this in preschool settings and to see how the small children react. The most remarkable result was the commitment of the students to protect, to safeguard, and to contribute to the sustainability of the city, thanks to their appreciation of its importance and for the kind of development and each conscious citizen. As for the young children, it was observed that they participate enthusiastically in the activity and that a very friendly atmosphere developed between them, even though most of the children did not speak Greek. They expressed pleasure and satisfaction. We, in turn, would like to have the conditions and facilities for the children to move and tour in the city, the old city of Nicosia, for example, and to have more direct contact with the city and to locate characteristics, elements, and a better experimental way. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize the importance of carrying out activities in cities where children and young people can identify with their own heritage and become familiar with the past, experiencing the present and looking to the future. There should be places where children and young people have the opportunity to express themselves and create and not just preserve elegant architectures that indeed only for specific purpose and to which only a few people can access. So the city should be very emotional, creative, with character and identity, but at the same time should have a universal perception. Although I'm grateful for having the chance of this dialogue due to technology, I would like to finish with the wish that next year we will have the opportunity to travel, to see and feel the vibrations of the cities, different cities, and therefore become world citizens through the heritage and among other conscious inhabitants who protect and love the past, looking at the future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Maria. I suppose you give us an excellent example how cities can be a part of a learning environment. It's very important for sustainable cities. Any questions? Okay, we have very interesting ideas in our chat, but I believe that maybe we will have some time in the end of session to discuss these ideas. Okay, and now is my turn, and I will be a speaker. Now I will try to demonstrate my screen. Just a moment. Okay, do you see my screen? I hope you see my screen, yes?
Yes, we can see it, Natalia.
Okay, thank you. So here you can see the topic of my report, Learning Environment for Sustainable Development, OMEP ESD rating scale in Russia. Many of you know that OMEP is the biggest organization in preschool education, in education of young children. And this organization pays much attention to sustainable development and to education for sustainable development. So I want to discuss some results of OMEP ESD project concerns with rating scale, how to evaluate readiness of the kindergarten to sustainability. So now you know what is sustainable development, but just a moment. But I want to stress that sustainable development is such development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So our future, our children are our future, and so sustainable development is closely connected with preschool education, with children, with childhood. And I like one of the slogans of ESD, think globally, act locally. I believe that we can implement this slogan in kindergartens and implementing ESD projects. Now, some words about the OMEP ESD rating scale and toolkit. OMEP launched ESD project several years ago, and this ESD project consists of several parts. Part 1, part 2, and every part has its own topic. I want to stress that our country took actively in many parts of this ESD project. And the last one part is OMEP ESD rating scale. So I said that OMEP is a very famous organization. And you can see here the site of World OMEP. And at this site, you can find details about ESD project. And OMEP endorsed the OMEP ESD rating scale and toolkit, early childhood education for sustainability and global citizen education. What is important for us? It's important that OMEP not only launch this project, but this organization pays much attention in all its activities. Pays much attention to sustainable development. And it's important because many kindergartens want to be sustainable kindergarten, but they then don't know what they can do. What is the structure of this project? There is a World Project leadership team. You can see here it, and this team created different documents and connect with different countries, with OMEP leaders of ESD project in different countries, analyze the results and make different recommendations. And every country has its own national leader, and I am national leader of this project in Russia. What is very important for my opinion? Very important is that the OMEP ESD rating scale was developed in line with principles of best practices in early childhood. So it is very important for kindergarten teachers. They can understand why and how to use this rating scale. And the second important thing is that this rating scale is using not to know who is better and who is the first one. This rating scale is using for estimating, for assessment, the learning environment of a kindergarten. And this rating scale help in building of the common sustainable kindergarten. This it's very important thing. And it may also serve as a record of development and progress. So teachers can understand what is sustainable in their kindergarten and what is not sustainable. And then they can decide what they can do with children. Of course, when we estimate the learning environment, we need some criteria. And such criteria was proposed by co-authors of this toolkit, of these recommendations, of this qualitative set. So there is a qualitative set of indicators. And the scale has 5 areas in each dimension. You remember that ESD has 3 main dimensions: ecological dimension, then economic dimension, and social dimension, including culture. So the scale is, these criteria are divided into 3 big groups according to these dimensions, and in each dimension we have 5 areas, and there are 4 sets of indicators in each dimension. And the different indicators represent qualitative steps towards cultures of sustainability: inadequate, minimal, good, and excellent. So you can see here, 1, inadequate for children's education and care. Minimal indicates that children are informed and develop knowledge. Good indicates that children participate, influence decisions and take actions. And excellent indicates that preschool is involved in transformative and including in different activities in kindergartens. And there are some another indicators, but as I said, you can see details at the
Микрофон, пожалуйста, Наталья.
Okay, sorry. This project has different stages. The first one is individual ratings. Teachers and management individually observe their environment and education and do their rating in the different areas. The second one is team discussions and ratings. So they together discuss the results and create some new methods, some new plans, and so on. Developing an action plan. The final step is to develop an action plan for where to start and what to do. And it's important to do with children and with parents also, with the society. Then period for actions and projects. This is followed by the planned actions for 6 or 12 months. And then at the end, they once more can estimate their learning environment and make some conclusions. Just a moment. Okay. And now about some results of implementation this project in Russia. Here you can see some figures. Now we have 73 preschools, preschool institutions, different kindergartens, preschool centers, and so on. This is participants of this project. Then not all kindergartens now finished with this project. I have, as a national leader, I have 45 reports at this time. The age of children is 3-7 years, and participants are kindergarten teachers, university teachers and students, parents, and different organizations. So, for example, museums, theaters, ecological centers, and so on. And here you can see some pictures from kindergarten participants. And at this slide, you can see the map of the project. So many regions of our country take part in these projects and database. Participants of this project can be one group in a kindergarten, 2 groups, all groups, or even 2 kindergartens can combine their efforts. And I worked out different documents, additional documents, for example, such questionnaire for teachers, and asked teachers to say about their difficulties. They said that the main difficulty was connected with economic dimension. It's very interesting. And of course, there were difficulties connected with caused by coronavirus, COVID. Preliminary results of this project in our country. I decided to provide a name for the project, and the project has been given a name, Is Your Kindergarten Ready for Sustainable Development? Why I gave the name to this project? Because I believe that made it more attractive and easy to understand for kindergarten teachers. The second point, localization of measuring scales, providing specific examples and clarifications for them. What clarifications, explaining the goals, what the project would give to the kindergarten. It's very important for teachers. Criteria included in the scale were provided with Russian cases that would make it easy to use by teachers. And details are provided under each criteria in the tables. Creating additional documents, special forms for participants, recommendations on the development of the project in regard to creating of learning environment, the right to choose, starting with criteria that seem most easy to understand. And many teachers asked me how to start with this project, using different sources for the projects and its support. For example, webinars with the famous educational journal Obruch were organized, public lectures. The information is published on the pages in Facebook. Information was propagated through reports at different conferences, forums, international, on Russian and regional. Using the logo of the projects. While the joint project for children and adults has been implemented and discussed, kindergartens were offered to use the ESD project logo. This logo was designed for the first part of ESD project, but we use it during all the time. So some kindergartens used the logo. It was interesting for children. The next point, ongoing communication with the participants, online consultation, emails, and in the comments for the projects, the national leaders or me asked for feedback about the problems that participants might have encountered, as well as for their opinion. And now I have many opinions, but I am waiting for other kindergartens. And cooperation between teachers. It is very important that not only discussing scales and schedules, but also organizing fairs of ideas for education. So they organized fairs of ideas for education in kindergartens, and teachers tried to look at the existing kindergarten environment, learning environment, and its planned elements through children's eyes. So they try to support children's initiative and children's ideas. And now, at the end, some examples of the projects that were implemented by children and adults. Here on the slide, you can see one of the criteria of this project, of this rating scale, and pictures of the project. For example, economic sustainability criteria. The children are encouraged to suggest in which cost can be reduced by conserving and recycling materials and resources, such as paper and electricity, in kindergarten, at home, and beyond. And here you can see a project that is called History of the Lamp. Of course, it concerns saving of electricity. The next one, also economic sustainability. The children are regularly and routinely involved in recycling activities in the setting. This topic is very popular in Russian kindergartens, not only in the framework of this project. And I believe that it is important that they not only recycle these materials, they also use these materials for organizing different drama games, different drama playing. Next one project is Save a Sheet of Paper, Save a Tree, which is also economic sustainability. And parents took part, actively participated in this project. This project is about ants. And this is environmental sustainability criteria. The children routinely participate in projects and group activities to explore, investigate, and understand environmental issues in their daily lives. So children asks about ants. There was the question, what do we know about ants? So they implemented this interesting project. Next one, in environmental sustainability, the children are encouraged to provide a variety of actions, including narrative accounts, to represent their efforts to solve environmental issues. And here you can see that children discuss even such global problems, issues as climate change. And this project was very interesting, not only for children of this group, but also for children of the whole kindergarten, for school, and for parents. Economic sustainability, once more project concerning involving children in recycling activities in the setting, and some opinions of teachers about this MPSD rating scale project. So you can see this rather interesting experience helped many teachers to see child development across the world in a new light. And really, it's very important to compare sustainability of kindergartens in different countries. And we are thankful for the new vector of the kindergarten's development. Many teachers wrote me that it was very interesting to see, to analyze their learning environment from the aspect of sustainability. It's a new look, of course. And thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in the project. And some conclusions. For successful implementation, the project should not only be adapted to local conditions, but also supplemented with specific examples that are understandable to teachers. For a more objective assessment of the learning environment, it is necessary to organize special training for teachers. The project helps educators and children understand that what sustainable development is and what they can do to implement it. The project helps educators to take a new look at the learning environment of the kindergarten and understand what is not sustainable in this environment. The project provides criteria for assessing the environment from the standpoint of sustainability. However, in our opinion, it would be good to concretize some criteria and make them more comparable. The project promotes changes in the learning environment of the kindergarten and gives new opportunities for children and adults. The project contributes to the support of children's initiatives and independence, involves children in changing their learning environment, and gives them the opportunity to feel their importance in the implementation of sustainable development. And the last one is very important for children, I believe. Of course, we will continue to make conclusions because we will continue this project. And I know that many Russian kindergartens join our session. So I want to say that you can join our project. You can write to this email. You can see project email here, and you will be a part of our community. Thank you very much for your attention. And here you can see my context. I am open for cooperation. That's all. And just a moment, I want to. Okay, this is. Now let's continue our session. Adriana, are you here? No, I know that she has some problems. Okay, now I invite Paulette Luff. Are you here? Yes, okay. And it's not only Paulette, it's a very interesting group from Great Britain. I believe that you will say some words about your group, about your colleagues, and so you are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Natalia, for inviting us. It's lovely to be here and be part of this symposium. John's going to share the screen, and we're going to talk. It links well with the presentations that have already been given, because we're going to talk about a project that OMEP UK is involved in at the moment, supporting education for sustainable development through a citizenship award, recognising like what we might be able to do to support those young citizens. So Lynnette is a participant here, but she's not with us today. So I'm going to set some of the context and then hand over to John to give a flavour of the award. Okay. So to put in context, we said we're speaking from the UK, but that's quite difficult because we have education is devolved to the 4 different countries, and so we have different early childhood curricula. Some of them are listed here, and they cover different age ranges. For example, in England, the early years foundation stage is from birth to 5, whereas in Wales, the foundation phase is from 3 to 7, maybe more in line with European kindergartens. So, and also there's different emphasis on education for sustainable development within the different countries. There's a clearer commitment in Wales and in Scotland. For example, in Scotland, learning for sustainability is embedded in the curriculum for 3-year-olds through to 18-year-olds. And now the professional standards for teachers in Scotland reflect knowledge and awareness of ESD. So in England, we like to change the curriculum quite often. And we have a new, despite the pandemic context, we have a new revised statutory framework for the early years foundation stage that starts from September 2021. And despite this revision being a good opportunity to include education for sustainable development, it isn't explicitly included in the new guidance. There is, under the understanding the world area of learning, there are 7 areas of learning. Understanding the world is one, and it does say that children should be listening to a broad selection of stories, non-fiction, rhymes and poems will foster their understanding of our culturally, socially, technologically and ecologically diverse world. And I think that's as close as the official statutory guidance gets to actually nominating ESD as a topic within the early childhood curriculum. There's some guidance to support the implementation of the statutory curriculum, and in the official government guidance, there isn't any particular explanation of that aspect of understanding the world, and there isn't a mention of sustainability. But an alternative guidance for practitioners has been prepared by a coalition of different there's a lot of different early years organisations in England, in the UK, and OMEP is one of them, and they have prepared a more detailed birth to 5 guidance. Maybe it's called for the sector, by the sector. So people who are involved in early childhood education in different roles have created guidance, and that does explicitly include responsibilities to implement the UN sustainability goals and to work for environmental sustainability and sustainable development. Okay, so there's quite a lot going on working for ESD in early years in England, and it tends to be from the voluntary sector. There's one university which is quite prominent, which is Liverpool John Moores University, and they've developed an early childhood education for sustainability framework to be used alongside the early years foundation stage curriculum. There's an organisation called Champions for Change in the Early Years, GECO. You can look, they've have a website that you can find, and that brings together a lot of different initiatives to think how early childhood settings can be run in more sustainable ways. The UN Sustainable Development Goals have been translated to Love Living Goals, which makes them more accessible for early childhood. And there's a organisation called the London Early Years Foundation, which is a social enterprise, and they're doing work about environmental sustainability and developing sustainability in the early years, which includes post-qualifying qualification, sort of at level 4, so it's like first year undergraduate level on developing sustainability. But OMEP in the UK has been promoting education for sustainable development for a long while through the World OMEP projects that Natalia was talking about, and other initiatives which John has been involved in since their inception. And the current project that we're doing, which John is going to tell you about, is an early childhood education for Sustainable Citizenship Award scheme that nurseries and preschools and schools can engage with. So over to John after that little bit of context. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Paula. Okay, so my task is to tell you what's involved in the award, and probably the first thing to say is it's addressing directly what Nektarios was saying about the integration of ESD and global citizenship. So it's actually taken ESC and put citizenship central to it. And to that end, every child begins the project by being given a passport. And in the passport, there are visas that show their progress through their education for sustainable development. It also includes a summary of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, because it's the convention that says that children must be informed and involved in any changes or decisions that affect their future. So it's the fundamental grounding and foundational rationale for children being involved in sustainable development work. And we feel that's very important for the parents to take on board. So parents are very much involved in this. The other parts of the award is an audit tool, and the audit was based on the rating scale that Natalia's been talking about, but we've sort of operationalized it as 3 audits, one for bronze, one for silver, one for gold level. So across the 3 levels, we cover the ground of the rating scale. And the idea is to support preschools in development planning. So they first of all identify their baseline performance in terms of the rating scale, and then set objectives for the first phase of their development work to achieve bronze. And when they put that forward to the accreditation board in OMEP UK, we decide whether they've made sufficient progress to be given the award. So it's based on the setting getting the award. Part of that is that they must have at least 50% of all their parents involved supporting their child's home learning environment with sustainable development. And to facilitate that, we produce some booklets to covering each of the areas of sustainable development: economic, environmental, and social cultural, and also giving literacy and numeracy a spin of sustainable activities as well, so that the parents are very much engaged in partnership with the preschool in that activity. Within, as I said, inside the passport, there is provisions for the child to put in these visas that show their progress, and each one is given by the preschool and stuck into the passport when they've completed one of these booklets. Each of the booklets has 10 activities for the parent to do with the child, and so in total over the 3 levels, there's about 150 of those. And they range very widely. One activity, for example, is for the parents to teach their children the names of 3 wild birds. This is very, very simple. Parents don't need any resources. They just need to be directed in the right directions. Another one is to talk to their child about the water, electricity distribution systems. So actually to look at the pylons and draw their attention to the way the systems work. This is a typical entry. So this one's teach your child to recognize and understand the recycle symbol. The child can say, I can recognize the recycle symbol. And there's the parent has written, David said we can recycle the milk bottle. I can see the recycle sign on it. It's registered. When the booklet is full, the preschool teacher passes on the sticker to go into the passport. Here's another one: provide a torch and remind your child how important it is not to waste batteries. Another one: show water pipes under taps water meters. Visit, show a picture of a reservoir so they get the idea of the water system and supplies. Provide electrical games for access to television. I care about saving electricity and turn off electrical appliances when I finish using it. So it's very modest activities, but they cover the full range of activities within sustainable development. We've got 47 trainers. So the emphasis is on training trainers to support preschools to actually implement the award. In total, there are about 1,000 children, just over 1,000, engaged at the bronze level at the moment. Some of them have gone through bronze, and the settings are working on the silver level of the award. England and a few in Scotland as well, but mostly centred in the south of England so far. It's early days. We've started this up in the middle of a pandemic, which has limited some of the training opportunities especially for the settings themselves. And things are actually accelerating quite quickly at the moment. As far as the trainers are concerned, we provide them with all the documentation to actually implement the award with their practitioners and with the parents. So it's PowerPoint and video training materials and supporting texts, ideas, books, things they can do with the children. And we provide ongoing support as well. So we have regular, at the moment, exclusively Zoom-based drop-in sessions for the trainers to come back to us and see how they're going. At the silver level, we've got a global dimension. It's crucial that, of course, that we actually address sustainability at a global level, because none of our countries can actually fix these things on their own. So we started off with partnerships with preschools in Kenya. Now we have a number of preschools that have just joined us from Western Africa as well. The latest, very latest, two settings, one from Thailand and one from Chile. And the general principle is that we want all our, at the silver level, all our preschools to partner up with another preschool in the global south so that they can learn from each other, and so that the children can learn that there are children all over the world engaged in sustainable development, just like them, and that they're part of a broader movement, if you like, towards that. The relationship between the preschools, I mean, there have been many partnerships between global north and south schools in the past that have been very unequal and based on charity and encouraged things like dependency and false senses of superiority, actually, in the case of many English children who've been involved in those projects. So what we've done is to try to create something that is based on basically the Paris Accord. So we have a problem that can only be addressed by all global partners being involved. And we know that contraction and convergence in carbon footprints is the main dimension for that. And that there are countries in the world that need to bring up their carbon consumption to defeat poverty and ill health, as well as countries that need to reduce. So we're just using exactly the same logic. We've got preschools in the global north who need to reduce their carbon footprint in a significant way, and preschools in the global south who actually know quite a lot about how to do that because they've had to do it in the past. So they've got quite a lot of expertise in recycling and in providing alternative means of doing it. So a lot of the materials address not just the curriculum for the children, but also how to actually reduce the amount of transport for parents, bringing children to school, the staff coming into school, the amount of electricity the preschool is using, and gas and recycling, and the amount of waste. Many of our preschools actually measure literally the weight of their waste and organize contracts so that their waste doesn't go to landfill, for example, as part of this project. So it involves the institution in a broader sense than many of the other ones. And it's addressing Sustainable Development Goal 17, which is the one we really neglected before. It's the one that we didn't do enough about. We're really working on partnerships between the parents and the preschool, but also between different organizations that parents are often members of, Royal Society for the Prevention of Birds in the UK, for example, different charity groups that are doing things for sustainability, that they can be drawn into the preschool and work with us on the project. I want to give you a little taste of just, we haven't chosen an exemplar particularly. This is one of the last preschools that's gone through the process, and they've been awarded their bronze award. And you see the bar chart there, the histogram, that is the award, that is the rating scale rating for this particular preschool. So their baseline, the blue bars, show what they were doing in terms of social cultural education before they started the project, and the orange bars are showing what they've achieved in terms of developing their social cultural provisions. And they were pretty good, actually. There was certainly some key developments, but they weren't doing too badly. I want to draw your attention to one particular activity that's on the sheet, because they actually have, within this particular school, they have a food bank. And there are many of our settings in the UK that have food banks. Either they're contributing towards them with the children, or they actually have them in the preschool itself. And a food bank, if you're not aware of it, is for children in families who are in poverty. We have a very severe problem in the UK, I think, with relative poverty today. And one of the ways that the difficulties that Nektarios was talking about of practitioners understanding the economic and social cultural, or being able to address these, are solved in many ways because of the social problems that we actually have. You know, people are going to the food banks in order to supplement their day-to-day living by the gifts of the sharing of resources that are provided through them. So, you know, I think that needs require a positive response to these things. And as sustainability becomes more notable for the population generally, they become more mobilized and more willing to accept that they need to be doing something. And, you know, that's happening with floods, with fires, with all kinds of different mass extinctions, etc. In terms of the environmental work, this really is a strength in many of our settings. But I mentioned the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. The children in this particular preschool were very much involved in working with an allotment, growing food, but also within this preschool setting and in the allotment, feeding the wild birds and looking after them and making up particular feeds for different types, for different species of birds, etc. And they work with adult volunteers, obviously, and with community activities that were already existing to some extent. And in terms of the economics, generally speaking, economics is the most poorly understood area of early childhood education as far as practitioners are concerned. On the face of it, most practitioners think economics is all about money. But of course, economics is about being economic. It's about thrift, it's about repair, it's about reuse, it's about recycling. It's those things. These are economic issues. And one of the reasons that it's not been so well developed in many of our settings is because we've had very little understanding of the nature of the subject. So part of the training is to actually solve that problem. And repairs, one of the examples in the illustration here is the way in which the school keeper, the caretaker of this particular setting, always did their work in repairing or maintaining the building after the children went normally, but they made it part of the curriculum itself so that the children could actually see and be part of that activity as well. And, you know, similarly, when parents make economic decisions like choosing a car that uses less fuel, or choosing a washing machine that uses less energy, that's brought into the curriculum as well. So the children see themselves as contributing as citizens, and their families contributing as citizens to the overall effort for sustainability. It's very much a celebratory model that we're trying to emphasize. And the parents have been really, really very positive about it. One of the things that many of the settings have said is that we sometimes struggle with some parents involving them in anything, even getting them to read with their children at bedtime. But this project seems to actually go past that. So many parents want their children to actually know more about sustainability. They want to contribute themselves towards a more sustainable future. And that's actually provided a means by which we can actually do a lot more partnership activities with the families generally. So that's incredibly powerful, I think. I mentioned the partnerships overseas. The way they work generally are, first of all, through an exchange. So we exchange photographs of the different settings. At the moment, we're not being terribly ambitious. What we want the settings to do at the silver level is to create a project that both settings are involved in. When we get to gold level, we'll be looking at more sustained engagement and much more measurement of carbon footprints. But at this stage, at silver, and in the settings we're working with at the moment, it's mostly finding out about each other and then identifying what it is they want to learn from each other. So in this particular case, they exchanged cuddly toys. Simba, a cuddly lion, came from Kenya, and Widget was sent over by DHL to the Kenyan preschool. Out in the wilds of the Northern Rift Valley in the countryside, along with a booklet that the children made with their teachers to show what it was like in their preschool. Widget goes to Kenya, and the practitioners take photographs of the children taking Widget around the preschool, telling them about what they do and what their life is all about. And one of the activities that the children in the UK were particularly interested in was the children working in the shamba, in the growing actually maize within the school. And it was a grandmother, who is shown in the photographs that the children received, who's showing the children how they actually take the seeds from the maize, from the corn, and plant it and deal with weeds and dig up the ground, etc., to do that. So when that activity and when those images come back to become part of the curriculum in the UK, the children do the same thing. And one of their grandfathers comes in from his allotment and shows them how they can divide up the seeds, and they can plant them and they can grow some for themselves. So they can report back to each other through the teachers in the main, but they get to know each other in the process. The aims, as I say, are fairly modest in the Silver Award. It's a project. The kinds of things that the children benefit from in this particular school, one of the crucial things that the teachers, the parents and the children benefited from was they heard about Wangari Maathai for the first time. The one African who's achieved the Nobel Peace Prize for her mobilization of people growing trees. So these children ended up planting trees in their local environment, partly through that influence. And that provided a wonderful role model for the African origin or children within that setting, Afro-British and Afro-Caribbean children within the setting as well. I think if we can leave some time for discussion, I think it'd be better to stop at this point. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, that's fine. I think you've covered everything really well, John. Thank you.
Sorry, I will end this year, but I can't.
Okay, that's all? Because your group consists of 3 people.
Lynnette wasn't able to be with us, but she is part of the project. She works on the helping with the training of the trainers.
She's actually training right now, so
she's doing that right now today. Yes,
she's on another Zoom call.
Thank you so much for interesting, very interesting report. Thank you, John, that you join us, because I want to say that John is one of the founders of Education for Sustainable Development in Early Childhood. And as far as I know, you are one of the co-authors of the rating scale. Yes, project. Yes?
Well, there were 10 countries involved, so.
Yes, I know that you was also involved, yes. Thank you so much. Maybe we have questions. Any questions? And I have a question. You know that there is a program, Green Flag, for example, Green School, yes, and Green Kindergarten. Can you connect your award with this program, or they are different?
Can I start and answer that, Paulette? We have several of our settings also do those projects and are involved in those projects, but they're mostly focused on the environment. So they don't get the economic and social cultural part, and they don't cover all of the sustainable development goals. Mm-hmm. And we've made sure that we've audited all the materials and training to make sure that they do actually address every single one of them. Probably the closest other initiative in terms of citizenship is UNESCO's, the Rights Respecting Schools project, which we've had discussions with them about some of our activities providing accreditation evidence for that Rights Respecting Citizenship Award as well. I think though we definitely do not want to be in competition with any of these groups. We want to, as far as possible, support each other.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please, Paulita, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think I agree that the initiatives are complementary. They can work together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but because I know that many kindergartens in your country take part in these programs. I mean, Green Flag and so on.
Yes. The other thing is affordability, because schools have larger budgets than nurseries and kindergarten, and they have to invest a little bit more to do the Green Flag Awards and the eco schools. It costs more, whereas ours is a kind of more affordable option. But they can work together. The schools can do both.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I have one question, but I suggest that I will answer after all reports, because we have limited time. Adrijana, I am so happy to see you. So please, you are welcome.
Hello, and I thank you for inviting me, and I have to apologize. I have to move from my apartment to the university because something went wrong.
I see.
Okay. I managed to do it. Hello.
Okay.
And I managed to come in time to listen at least some of you.
Okay. Can you share your screen with us?
Okay, yes, I can. Here it is.
Okay.
Okay. Hello to everyone. I hope that you have a good time, and I hope that we are striving to a sustainable way of life. I'm very happy when I can see so many people from early childhood education together in working for a sustainable future. I will give you just a brief insight into one of the research that is conducted in Croatia. First of all, just to introduce myself very shortly, I'm Adrijana Višnjić-Jevtić. I'm assistant professor at University of Zagreb, Faculty of Teacher Education in Croatia. And for this occasion, I didn't prepare much of the status of the ESD in early childhood education, because as a community of ESD, I think that we are all very connected. So we mainly know what each country is doing at the moment. So I will just say that similar to the UK, we also have the green schools or green flag schools, even in early childhood education. But from the perspective of someone who is understanding sustainability much broader, I would say that a green flag in Croatia actually is more connected to environmental issues than probably in holistic way of sustainability. But that's also one of the conclusions that I will present you in later on. So what we will discuss during this lecture, it will be about children's rights in Anthropocene, then about perspectives of children's rights in the light of sustainability, role of early childhood education to ensure that children's rights lead to sustainable future. And finally, I'll present a research that I already mentioned about teachers' voices on early childhood education and ESD. So when we are talking about where we stand today, I think that the starting point is Convention of the Rights of the Child, but I think that we all have to agree that although the convention is very well known, I think that we know that it is most acceptable document worldwide. Just one country didn't accept it, and still, that doesn't actually mean that all countries that give signature to the convention are actually respecting children's rights. So some of the countries are striving to fulfill the obligations from the convention, but not all. And I think that we should be very precise and say that understanding of convention is very much different in different countries. So what we can find in Croatia as protecting of children's rights maybe seems totally different in some other countries. And there are some countries, as you may know, especially on the north of Europe, that appointing UNCRC as a national law. In Croatia, we doesn't do that, although the convention is a part of every law that are dedicated to children. The family law, the early childhood education law, or some other acts that are connected with early childhood education. The one thing that we should also discuss is what we actually see as the best interest of child, and whose maxima is that. Does it maxima of us as adults, or we see really best interest of child from the children's perspective? And this is the perspectives that we also may find in education for sustainability in early childhood education. Sometimes we as adults have totally different understanding of what children actually do when they do something that we perceive as sustainable. And I would just quote one sentence from the book that I think it may contribute to the understanding of sustainability in early childhood education, and that is not enough to adopt international treaties and to ratify UN Convention if the society continues to do business as usual, without opening to the new challenges that lie in example, climate change, pandemics, or unsustainable way of lives. I think that we are all aware of that, for example, we have sustainable goals that are very nice written, and we claim that we are doing like they say to us, but actually when we are trying to find what the actual practice in education is, I think that we will find many ways that they are not in line with the even convention or the sustainable goals or whatever. That's something that we who are dealing with early childhood education should be very much aware, and we should take responsibility and try to find a way that all documents, all relevant documents are actually live in practice. We have a better position than probably schools have, because we see much often the parents more often than, for example, in primary school in Croatia. Teachers in early childhood education are on the daily basis communicate with the parents. So we actually have a possibility to influence the wider society than just children, and don't understand that not just the children, but for example, in Croatia, primary school teachers are dealing only with the children and rather less with the parents. And we in early childhood education has a possibility to influence the both and the families and the children as well, and maybe to overcome this approach to just ratify some documents and not actually putting them into life. And when we discuss about children's rights and sustainability, as I'm sure that you are informed about Davis' 5 dimensions of rights, and most of early childhood settings in Croatia are somehow in this, are respecting this first children's rights. So how to protect their survival and developmental rights, which was especially important now in COVID times, because we have more responsibility. Children were daily, settings in Croatia wasn't closed, so they were open. Children are attending everyday kindergartens, and to protect their health and to protect health of their families was also one of this first dimension of the children's rights. And somehow I would say that approach to curricula in early childhood education actually gives possibility for children to actually participate in what they are doing, much more than, for example, in primary schools. It's example of Croatia, of course, where you have programs that are strict and doesn't really give chance to child to participate in their own learning. So we are lucky in a way to have possibility to give children's participation and to really see the children perspectives. And then, therefore, because of the social aspect of early childhood education, I would say that these collective rights are also very much present, as well as intergenerational rights. I saw earlier that John mentioned the grandfathers and grandmothers that are coming to kindergarten and show some cultural or some, I cannot find the English word, but I will remember. But to last some things from the past to nowadays, and children learn about culture from someone. And this is really, really common in early childhood education, because intergenerational dialogues are more often in early childhood education than later on in education as well. And finally, we do have bio and ecocentric that we all striving to. And what is actually our role to ensure children's rights to a sustainable future? So early childhood education should be supportive, mainly to understand the issues for sustainable development and develop some kind of empathy and respect for diversity of the world. Children in early years doesn't have prejudices towards other children and other cultures. So this is the right way to learn about how to be respectful to other creatures, and not just the creatures, the plants and the world in whole. So this is the only way of education and part of education where we can strive to achievement of the goals for sustainable development, because all goals that are mentioned in Agenda 2030 are very much connected to early childhood education. And if we respect and support children in that way, we may be sure that children will become an active citizens, and citizens that will have chance to change things to ensure sustainable future. So I would say that early childhood education may have crucial role in ensuring learning and supporting of the children for become competent individuals, and to be aware of their rights, but also to be aware of relation of their rights with some other rights of some other people. So it is interconnected. We know that educational settings should be founded on the convention, to respect convention, to be aware of children's rights, and to teach and children about their rights. And both of that, early childhood education and early childhood rights, may lead to sustainable future. So all is interconnected, and if we just take out one link, we couldn't have a whole circle that will lead us to the sustainable future. And just to present something, when we discuss with the teachers how they see early childhood sustainability, education for sustainable development, they mainly see sustainability as a balance of coexisting, but they know that they actually doesn't have enough knowledge or practice to be supportive to children to learn about sustainability. And they didn't see that, and this is the research made by 3 countries. It is research in Slovenia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Croatia as well. So in these 3 countries, we have similar educational system. We do have similar system of educating future teachers. So we may make some comparison between the countries. But interestingly, all teachers see that they don't have enough knowledge about sustainability, and they don't think that they have enough education for sustainable development during their studying. So they find education for sustainable development as a part of national curricula, but actually they mainly find economic or recycling as something that they can contribute, or environmental through knowledge on plants or animals and how to live together. And this is the topics that they are working most. But if they didn't get a broader picture of sustainability during their training, it is obvious that they cannot make interconnection between all pillars that are leading to sustainability. Of course, I think that most research that was done in this part of the Europe, so mainly in Croatia, Bosnia and Slovenia, shows that environmental pillar is mostly recognized. So somehow the social aspect of sustainability, which actually is pretty much a part of everyday practice through intergenerational dialogues, through social competence, through respecting differences amongst culture, through inclusive orientation of early childhood education, doesn't recognize as a part of education for sustainable development. I know that it is maybe not important to be recognized as a part, as long as our practice is showing that we are working on that. So we are dealing mostly with sustainability in early childhood education regarding on the naming of it, but still teachers in all 3 countries are educated on university level, bachelor level of education. So they should know they should have some theoretical background to understand sustainability, so they can promote education for sustainable development in early years. And what is the role of education or educators? They should be bridge between the theoretical knowledge and to everyday practice. And this is one of the way to develop sustainable attitude or positive attitudes towards sustainability amongst children, because as we know, all today's children will be someone who will tomorrow make policy. So if we prepare children and strengthen children with the positive attitudes towards sustainability, then they probably will be those policymakers who actually have a good orientation toward sustainability, and policy will make good foundation for sustainable education, and then education will influence the teachers will influence parents, and all together will influence the children. So we couldn't forget the role of education and teachers to ensure children rights to live in a sustainable society. And that means that actually early childhood educators or teachers, whatever we call them in what part of the world, has a huge responsibility for the future life. And that is what I wanted somehow pointed in my my presentation. Thank you for your attention. If you want to contact me, or if you are interested in the research further, you may contact me at the email.
Thank you so much, Adriana. It's a really important topic, and I believe that child rights are a very important part of education for sustainable development, but I believe that it is not easy topic for teachers, for example, in our country. So yes, you're right that we can try to combine, to connect theory and practice. It is very important. Thank you very much.
I would just, I see that John actually comment that we have more to done. I think that OMEP is the right organization that can contribute to that. Thank you.
Okay, I believe that we will have some time for comments, maybe in the end of the session. Okay, thank you once more. And now I want to invite Eva Lewandowska from Poland. Eva, yes, I see you. Please, Eva, are you here? Eva, please connect.
I try to.
I see. We are waiting for you. Okay, Eva is assistant professor at the Maria Grzegorewska University from Poland. Okay, I see you.
Okay. Do you see whole screen or not?
Not. Okay. So now we will discuss the results of ESD in Poland. Yes.
Okay.
Past and in future.
Okay.
Okay.
There is whole screen. Thank you for invitation, Natalia. We are each country, your colleagues, our colleagues from different culture contexts and with different history. I would like to tell you how what we are doing in ISD in early childhood education. Started with brief information of the past contradictions to show the context, culture context in which we are and in which we work. I'm assistant professor in the Maria Grzegorewska University in Warsaw in Poland. Right now I'm in kindergarten in Gdańsk, from where I have a lot of photos and which I show you here. Okay. This is a picture about our history. In our history, we have 123 years when we, not being a state, we lost identity. We've been we've been under the occupation during the First World War, during the Second World War. We have as a Poland, we have 20 years between the First and Second World War experienced when we experienced democracy, and after we entered a period of socialism in our country, from 1989, we start to experience democracy again. We did not participate in the growth of the idea of sustainable development. We reached it reached us after the transformation time, means 30 years ago. But as you may predict, it wasn't the most important, important topic when we changed the political system in our country 30 years ago. And a lot of mistakes, a lot of different way we chosen to find the way for us. Okay, in my country there is a lot of there is a beautiful countries with beautiful people where is a lot of contradictions. One of the contradiction is a conflict agreement. How we solve the conflict. I could, if the presentation, this presentation was 6 years ago, my presentation will be totally different. From 5 years, I can say that we not try to solve the conflict. We rather use the power and who has a power, who has a majority, not respect minority. Government use the power, and in all social situation, someone who has a power is under you, and usually not provide the discussion, not try to open the discussion, but just say there is how it there is as I said. And another sorry. I can change the slide. Okay, why? Okay, there is another slide. There's another contradictions, another paradox. Some things are appropriate for children in early education. Some of the things are not proper. For example, when we may talk about the Bible, we may talk about history, a painful history, but from 6 years, it's really difficult and really danger to talk about human rights, especially LGBT rights. And the other contradiction is what kinds of children we want to take care about. What kinds of children should be a Polish children? This is a contradiction between children should be passive, should be subordinate, or should have autonomy. And this contradiction is shown on the cartoons. It's really in the to the point what kinds of discuss and what kinds of different understanding of children and vision of children is in Poland. And now you see the documents in which we have top documents: Polish Constitution, signed Agenda 2030, and the most important for education law. We have written information that in our law we respect the sustainable development and respect the education also for sustainable education. But it looks good, and maybe some of you ask, where is the contradiction? There is a contradiction, because in the this is a top law, the educational law. Below them is a curricula for each level of education. In any of curriculum, there is no information about education for sustainable development. Teachers, what they are doing, teachers use the curricula, and government expect for them that they've done what is written in curriculum. In curricula, there is no information about sustainable education. You may find only information about some environment dimension which I connect with sustainable development, but usually teachers not connected with it with the sustainable development. And when the people hear about the sustainable development, they use the different strategy, thinking about it. I work with the university teachers, I work with the future early educators, teachers, and also teachers who work right now as a kindergarten and preschool and school teachers. What kinds of strategy they use when they hear about it? They think, oh, we are doing it exactly. Adriana said something like that. We do exactly what you said. It's great. You don't have to change anything because we are doing this, exactly this. The other strategy is it's not my task to do. This is a transfer to responsibility. Who should take responsibility for it? This is not my task. You may heard from the teachers. The other strategy is who should do this, and we will manage it. You will see a lot of managers and only one person who do this, who does it. Okay, and probably last, we do exactly what we should do. You see, this is the way of thinking which very often I heard from the people. But if you look at the picture, cartoonist from the Bangladesh, Morphet Mitsu, you may find it easily on internet. They are all in open access. The world looks different than we than we think that it looks. And he created the pictures how should looks and how looks his world around, probably from the Bangladesh. And now it was the past, it was the contradictions. Right now, what we are doing. You have just seen some of my strategies for education for sustainable development. When I'm working with the students, with early childhood educators, and also with my colleagues from the other universities, I appeal to emotions and various activities. For example, I use a lot of short movies. I use the play. I even use on the third picture you see musician. I always use there was a movement play for change, and those musicians they in front of the United Nations building and they play the song "United." We should be united. The song is from 2012, but it's exactly in the point. The meaning that we should together do something to make a changes, and only together we may do a changes. What kinds of activities are happens in Poland? What kinds of activities are successful? When you think about the education for sustainable development strategies from UNESCO, the learning outside the classroom, we call it outdoor education, is most of the successful strategies which we use to implement, to think, to work, to spread the information about the education for sustainable development. We presented the outdoor education in 3 dimensions. In the social dimensions, this is the way to be a participant as pupils. In the same moment, to change the model of education from the transmission to being more active, talk about the environmental education, and usually we start from the environmental dimension because this is what is in our curricula, and add economic dimension and show it in a much broader perspective than only that we are going outdoor. But it's a shame because more than 30 years ago, it was tradition in Poland that our children are going outside, and all children from the kindergartens from big cities travel for 2-3 weeks to outdoor activities. During the transformation time, we lost this. Tradition, we lost these activities, and now we are in the point, as you see on the right side. We have to work with the teachers, we have to work with the parents, and we work with the children that being outdoors is that you have a lot of profits because you are outdoor. But in the meantime, when we try to implement outdoor education in a traditional institution, we have a lot of new kindergartens, which are from the beginning forest kindergarten. This is one of the famous Puszczyk in Białystok, where the children, you don't recognize this is a picture from Poland or from a Scandinavian kindergarten, because they work exactly in that way. But only this is a small number of children and parents who decided for that type of kindergarten, and huge work is to implement outdoor education in, I could say normal, but rather traditional kindergartens, to give the children to have a possibility to meet nature, to feel belongings to the country, and also have some activities, outdoor activities, which, as you see, happens that you have a wet clothes. In normal traditional kindergarten, this is unusual, but more and more kindergartens start to again reactivate the outdoor education. The other way to work on education for sustainable development is intergenerational dialogue. But this is something what was in our tradition, and we keep it. We not lost it as outdoor education. Our grandparents and parents participate in education, participate in daily life, have influence on it, and helps a teacher to, for example, show something as a how to make pasta or planting, gardening, and other. It depends on parents and grandparents what may bring to the kindergarten. We are happy that we have more possibilities with them. Mm-hmm. This is one project from the Lublin. I work with my colleagues from university in Lublin, and this is I could say this is result of this my work with her, because she said I do this with the students, and they I told them that they have to do something during the practice. Students have no idea how to start. But the project was started because when they talk with the teachers, with the children about the pollution, about the plastic in the sea, one girls from the group asked what the fishes are thinking about it, and this was a starting point of the project. For 1 week, when the whole classes was clear without the furniture stay, but it had been covered by some materials, and it looks as a white place without any toys being covered also. And every day the children came to the kindergarten with some plastic boxes, some plastic things from homes which they haven't put it to the rubbish, just bring it to the kindergarten. It means that day by day there was more plastic rubbish everywhere, and they may use this the plastic things as a toy. They produce the penguin, as you see. They produce. This is a produce. At the first picture, you see the second life of the socks. From the socks, they produced some sea creature, and it was also the toy in this period. It was the diary from the sea. They produced the poster to protect the sea. And you see on the third picture, you see the table This is a bottom of the sea and and what the fishes are see when they are swimming in the sea. How dirty is what they are seeing. And the last day was a kind of activity when the teacher said that all children are fishes, and every 1 hour, and this classroom was bottom of the sea, and every 1 hour they a little bit make a smaller area for children. And the children taken all plastic things, toys which they want to take, but the space was smaller. 1 hour later was a little bit smaller and just a little bit smaller. It was the experience, parents agreed for it, that the children could feel what the fishes, they've been in the situation of fishes, they feel empathy to the fishes. Okay, and another project connected with the child rights. We don't have to talk about the dimensions, but as the dimensions, but you see the child rights are very strongly connected with the dimensions. And in my country, there is very long tradition to work on with child rights. We think that we are doing excellent work, but from time to time it's good to check how we work and to verify, to ask children how we work. This is a question to children in Gdańsk, in this kindergarten, and in Warsaw, which I asked them about the civil rights. Can you share what you think? The children may say what they are thinking to the adult or not, and you hear the answer. Mm-hmm. And when you think that we work excellent, it's good to hear the children's voice, what they are thinking about. For me, surprised me that the children think that when they open the mouth, we think. Children think that we think when they open the mouth, they said bad words. Horrible. It's verify our practice and give us a reflection that we should do something in a different way. For me, this is very important. And the last, okay. And the last example, I asked children the other question. You see the question and hear the children. even if you thought that the last sentences is for fun, they know that we have to together do something to change, to make our world a better place. The president is not only one person who make changes. He needs more people to make changes. This is part of the project. I name it Children Know. You see how competent are children, even if we don't have in our curricula education for sustainable development. They are competent and know what we should do to make a world a better place for everyone. And okay, the last reflection, conclusion. On the left picture, you see children from the kindergarten from Gdańsk, and on the right picture, you see my colleague who work on sustainable development, beautiful headmaster. But activities for sustainable development and education for sustainable development at every level are in the hands of conscious teacher. This is not result of core curriculum or support from the top. Some content, as you shown at the beginning, also directly related to ASD, are even considered inappropriate by the government. Those activities for the ASD are activities of, again, conscious, courageous, and reflective teachers ready for transformation in education. And one idea, small idea, children know what needs to be done to change our world for the better. Maybe in order to strengthen the child's voice and make the more audibility and visible, it's worth asking the same question for children from different countries. What do you think about that type of showing the voice of the children and making it more visible? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Eva. And especially thank you that we could hear children's voices. It's very important, I think.
I just add that I have the kindergarten headmasters and parents agreed to show this movie.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we have some questions, but now I will invite our last speaker, and then we will return to questions. Okay, and so I invite Lidia Cherezova, assistant professor from Volgograd Social and Humanitarian University, and the topic is assessment of the quality of preschool environmental education, new approaches, and she will speak in Russian. So you can choose English. Да, Лидия Борисовна, мы вас ждем.
So, Lydia, we are waiting for you.
Лидия Борисовна, вы меня слышите?
Lydia, can you hear me?
Sorry, there are some, I believe that there are some technical problems, maybe. Wait a minute, please.
Меня слышно?
Вот сейчас только первый раз слышно. Сейчас слышно, да.
Now we can hear you.
Да, мы не слышали, так что можно с первого слайда.
So we should start from the very first slide. So I am a professor at Volgograd State University and head of the laboratory for the ecological education of children, and I'm working on the preschool education. And it's quite evident that we understand that the quality of the preschool education and of education is defined by the law of the Russian Federation, where the quality of the education is considered to be complex characteristics of educational activity and preparation of the students that exposes the level of their coherence to the federal educational standards. And considering it, we count by the definition define the quality of educational standards due to our standards. As far as the standard where we prescribe the specific goals of it, it actually shows that in the article says that these goals can't be a part of the assessment of the pedagogical diagnostics. So if we take the definition of the goal of the ecological culture and education, we'll see that the main goal of ecological education is the formation of ecological culture. And we can see this quality at two levels. So considering Zebzieva, that can be inner and external level. So that is the quality amendments of the personal structure and its cooperation with the exterior world and environment. So if we consider the diagnostics of the goal and the diagnostics for children, then we must define the level of education for children, and we must dedicate the time and the changes in the behavior. So these are the needs, the capacities, interests, values, motives, habits, emotions, and subjective position, if we consider the inner one. And that is also the behavior, the attitude, the deed, the cooperation. But if we talk about the educational level and the cultural level of children, means that all these diagnostics comprise only the knowledge diagnostics, which is actually the secondary thing to be discussed. So if we speak about the ecological education of children, the best tool for it is the ecological map of child's behavior that was elaborated by Natalia Ryzhova. And at that map, we see the reflection of the knowledge, of the competence, and of the emotional attitude and comprehension of the nature by child, and the ecological literacy and safe behavior. So that is the activity behavior aspect. So I would like to show several slides and dedicate them to the criteria of the assessment that have been produced from the map of ecological formation, and thus meaning that children were not distributed to different levels like medium, low, high. No, we should respond to the question like what is being determined by the question. So we put a tick there. So what is the data for this or that index? We put a question mark if we don't know if the skill is formed or not, and a flag if this question requires. And that is a signal that something goes wrong and we need some more work. So here on this slide, I don't really have a lot of time as far as I see. So on this slide, we see the representation of several important criteria of this ecological behavioral pattern of a child. So the child understands the necessity to be respectful to all nature objects. So animals are not good or bad for him, useful or useless. He sees the connections and he understands the consequences. And that means that we have the ecological literacy while staying in forest, the river, or somewhere else. So that is also the map that has its importance while, you know, at the period when the child leaves the kindergarten at the age of 7, thus meaning that the child passes to the school.
Но если мы будем рассматривать в целом оценку...
So if we consider the whole quality assessment of ecology education, we will understand that the child learns from the grown-ups, and the real assessment of quality means that there is also the assessment of pedagogical art of a teacher and its professional capacities and skills. So considering the standards of the preschool education, the diagnostics of a child is not obligatory, it's just voluntarily done, and it can't be a criteria of the quality of the school education, thus meaning that some special attention must be paid to the teacher's skills and mastership. Thus meaning that the situation here is not as we have at school, because school education means that there is an international system that defines several orientations for children, like there are teens aged from 13 to 15, and they are diagnosed considering the reading, literacy, science, literacy, and etc. So here we are discussing the ecological literacy, and we are closer to the ecological one and the financial one. And so what should we diagnose here? It's not the illiteracy that should be diagnosed. So we have created the diagnostics, the evaluation of the teacher's professional knowledge, and we hold it at the first 3 weeks of September at the kindergartens with ecological vision, and they are also the themes for the master degrees. Of course, we couldn't have couldn't have left out the topics, and so that is the question that is unfortunately is not elaborated really well, and we have just the ECAS scales that do not correspond really with the recommendations of Natalia Ryzhova. So in the national doctrine, the education is also described like the quality of education really depends on the readiness of pedagogical employees. So we have defined several aspects of competences of the teachers. So that is legislatory, didactical, methodical, and administrative ones. So considering the first one, we have used a test of Irina Sleptsova, then the table on self-diagnostics on professional standards of a teacher, and the Leskina questionnaires if you are susceptible to the new things and if there are any obstacles for you in accepting new technologies. We have used the author's tests of master degree students like Daria Kuznetsova that were created according to several textbooks on preschool pedagogics and psychology. We have also used the verbal associative methodology for ecological identification, ESOP, that defines several aesthetic, cognitive, ethic, and other pragmatic beliefs. And of course, we have used the test that would define the ecological knowledge that was made based on works by Natalia Ryzhova and on her numerous works. Considering the administrative competence, I would say that we also used the test by Daria Kuznetsova, master degree student, who was working on self-management of teachers, on the enforcement of motivational readiness, and the questions considering the IT competences of the teachers. So the questionnaire was made based on the works by Simonova, Yakusheva, and others. Considering the object and directional environment, we also used author methodologies by Elena Shatskaya and Olga Shaykhutdinova that were based on the standards of the ecological programs, the ACAS and the OMAP project on environment, that were adapted to the Russian realities adopted by Natalia Ryzhova. The results for the diagnostics, for the primary diagnostics, I mean, really made us a bit shocked as far as some of the teachers considered that their personal beliefs approved that the first one should be aesthetic, the second one is pragmatic, and only the third one was the belief considering the cognitive development of a child. That meant that teachers pass their beliefs to children and they consider nature to be, first of all, as an aesthetic object, and considering its pragmatic use as a resource. And only at the third stage, that would be, the joy of knowledge, the joy of studies, which is not, of course, really well considering our point of view. So considering my small report, it's impossible to discuss all the problems that are connected to the evaluation and assessment of school education, and we try to highlight some directions, and the next results are for the next report. So thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. So that is a technical question. Do we have 5 minutes for discussion?
Sorry, I asked about the time. So, thank you very much, Lidia.
As soon, Natalia, sorry, as soon as you
just a moment.
Hello to everybody.
Thank you very much for your report. It's a very important issue, and many teachers ask me also how to estimate such results in ecological education, for example. Игорь Богданович, мы можем 5 минут обсудить еще?
Yes, so, Igor, do we have 5 minutes to discuss?
As soon as you are in lunch break, so in this time you may stay. Yes,
it's
and have lunch after
yes,
that.
I see. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So maybe some questions to Lidia or another speakers. You are welcome. Okay, we have questions here. I see. Just a moment. Have some questions from participants. they are in Russian. I will try to translate. Just a moment, I don't see them. These questions to John and Paulette. Yes, about your criteria. So this is a very interesting experience. And please would you please say how you can estimate what criteria you can use to estimate silver award, gold award, so on?
Yes, I've actually shared a paper which explains this in more detail. I don't know how to distribute that, Natalia, but essentially what we did in developing the bronze, silver, and gold levels was to operationalize the OMEP ESD rating scale, but to rewrite it in much more preschool practitioner terms rather than academic terms, and to elaborate a little bit on them so that they were more understandable, and to actually take the earlier levels to constitute bronze, and the middle levels the silver, and then the final levels the gold. Now we have revised it in the process as the team at World OMEP have revised the original rating scale. So we've been revising the audit documents that we've been using as well. And the paper I'm sharing is actually part of that process. So none of these documents are written in stone. They're all being developed all the time to make them more adequate.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And the second one question, how you support children when they try to be at the higher level?
It's the setting that's at the level rather than the children. So the children are working with the settings to gain the award. So it's a collaboration between the kindergarten or nursery that they're attending and the children and the parents and the staff. And so as a whole, they start off with bronze, and then as a whole they move on to the silver or thing. So yes, the children are involved, but the children and the commitment, I mean, John can probably say a bit more, the commitment shared with the children, but it doesn't invite like competition between the children. It's more a collaboration so that everybody together achieves the award.
There is in the materials and in the training resources, one of the things that we've done is to make sure that we're not providing just ideas for things that the teacher can do with the children. So we're not saying, you can make a bug hotel, or you can, do these different activities with the children, and that will be the curriculum. What we've tried to do is to support the practitioners in identifying what the children know and understand, and then provide some ideas for how they can build on the diversity, the unique nature of every child. So it's a very child-centered approach rather than a curriculum-centered approach that we're developing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And many thanks to Natalia Zvonareva for the questions. Okay, and I have one question. Thank you for your presentation, Natalia. I am wondering what items of the scale you used were the most challenging for Russian kindergartens. What was the most difficult to understand or to accept for children and teachers? Yes, the most hard, if I can say so, for our teachers estimate was economic dimension, economic sustainability. I believe it is because we have only a few issues, economical issues in our curriculum. And for example, teachers don't know how they can answer to such question. Do you involve your children when you buy toys, for example, or discuss you with your children what should buy for the kindergarten? It's not typical for Russian kindergartens. And of course, they could not estimate their learning environment according to this criteria. And as I believe Yeva said, they like environmental sustainability, maybe because we have very interesting curriculum on ecological education, and this sustainability is understandable. So all problems were connected with economic dimension, with economic sustainability, and I plan to analyze these difficulties, and I plan to analyze all results, and maybe in future I will tell you about this problem in details. Thank you for the question. Any questions? We have many comments. I believe they are very interesting. And I see that many speakers want to communicate in future. It's great. So that's all. We have, do you want to send some? Yes, maybe you have questions or you have some suggestions.
Natalia, maybe as soon as we are really run out of time and there is no translation at the moment, because we may stay without lunch, but interpreters have to have their lunch.
I see.
Yeah, so I just
will finish. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so I would just like to add on behalf of the organizing committee of the symposium that I'm very pleased that we had this section, and it was really interesting for me. I attended it all the time, and thank you, Natalia, for organizing all of this, and many thanks to all the speakers. And I hope that definitely we will keep this direction in our symposium, and I mean for the future, for the next years. And I hope that next year we will be able to invite you to Moscow and to have this section in person. And we hope that the pandemic situation will allow us to do that. So thank you once more, and I hope to see you next year in person again. And we also planning the publication, an international publication after this symposium, and we will inform you about the standards of the publication that we have to fit to be published. And we also hope, at least for some articles from your section. Thank you once more.
Thank you. Спасибо большое.
Okay. Thank you so much. Just a moment, and I want to say that I hope that we also contributed to the EC, Education for Sustainable Development of Young Children, by this session. And thank you so much all, and very interesting reports. And I hope that we will meet face by face in the future and discuss different issues. So thank you very much once more. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Natalia. Goodbye. Goodbye to all of you.
Bye.
See you soon. Goodbye.
Thank you.